What happens when one of Hollywood's most iconic actors goes head-to-head with a talk show host who refuses to show even a shred of respect? You're about to witness one of the most uncomfortable moments ever broadcast live on daytime television. Harrison Ford, the man behind Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and countless other legendary roles, walked onto The View expecting a standard promotional interview. What he got was something completely different. Before we get into this shocking encounter, make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Do you think Harrison handled this the right way? The studio lights burned hot that morning as Ford settled into his chair across from the panel of hosts. It was familiar territory, just another stop on the press tour for his latest film. A quick, friendly chat. Nothing more. But from the instant Joy Behar opened her mouth, it was clear this wasn't going to be routine. Well, she said with her signature smirk. Look who we've got, Harrison Ford. The man who made a career out of playing the same grumpy character over and over again. The other hosts shifted in their seats, visibly uncomfortable. This wasn't the light-hearted tone they'd discussed before going live. Off camera, Ford's publicist felt her stomach drop. She had specifically asked the producers to keep things professional. Ford's jaw tensed slightly. His voice remained calm. I think you might be confusing me with someone else, he said. I've played a wide range of characters throughout my career. Oh really? Joy leaned forward, clearly enjoying herself. Let's see. You've got the grumpy pilot in Star Wars, the grumpy archaeologist in Indiana Jones, the grumpy detective in Blade Runner. I'm seeing a pattern. The audience fell silent. The tension in the air was unmistakable. This wasn't witty banter anymore. It was something else. Ford glanced at the other hosts, silently pleading for someone to redirect the conversation. But they remained frozen, unsure how to proceed. Joy, Ford said, voice sharpening. I came here to talk about my new film. Maybe we could focus on that instead of whatever narrative you're trying to push today. But Joy wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed energized. Narrative? I don't have a narrative, Harrison. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You've been coasting on the same roles for years. When's the last time you actually pushed yourself as an actor? The question lingered in the air like a storm cloud. Ford had handled tough interviews before, but this one felt personal, like it was designed to humiliate him, live, in front of millions. You know what, Joy, he said, the edge in his voice unmistakable now. I've been acting for over 5 decades. I've worked with some of the greatest directors in film history. I've played everything from carpenters to presidents. And I've never felt the need to justify my work to someone who makes a living gossiping on daytime television. The room went still. Only the faint hum of the cameras remained. Joy's face turned red, but instead of relenting, she doubled down. Gossiping? That's what you think this is? I'm asking fair questions. Questions your fans deserve answers to. Or are you just too much of a prima donna to handle a little honest criticism? Ford stood slowly. His chair scraped loudly across the floor. The sound cut through the silence like a blade. Honest criticism, he said. You call this an ambush, honest? I've dealt with critics who actually understand the industry. You're not even in the same league. Sit down, Harrison, Joy snapped. Her voice was rising. You don't get to intimidate me just because you're some big Hollywood name. This is my show. I ask the questions here. Ford's tone dropped, low and sharp. Your show is a joke, Joy. You spend your days tearing down people who create things, while offering nothing but noise. At least when I play a grumpy character, I'm getting paid to pretend. The other co-hosts finally stirred, murmuring weak attempts to defuse the situation. But it was too late. The mood had shifted, and there was no coming back. Joy wasn't going to let Harrison have the final word. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? She fired back. Because you starred in a few successful movies, you think that gives you the right to talk down to us? Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Ford. Your best days are behind you. And everyone knows it. Ford's fists clenched at his sides. For a second, it looked like he might lose it completely. The studio felt like it had stopped breathing. Joy's last sentence hung in the air like a punch to the gut. People in the audience shifted uncomfortably. You could practically hear hearts pounding. Ford's publicist was frantically waving to the producers, begging for a cut to commercial. But no one moved. No one spoke. Everyone was frozen, watching something that felt like it was crossing a line from awkward to historic. Harrison slowly turned to Joy, his eyes narrowing with the quiet intensity that had once made him a box office king. But this wasn't a film set. There were no retakes. No director to yell cut. My best days are behind me, he repeated softly. The audience leaned forward, sensing something was about to happen. You want to talk about best days, Joy? When were yours? When you were bombing on stage, doing stand-up nobody laughed at? Or maybe when you clung to this chair for relevance, tearing others down to stay in the headlines? Joy's mouth opened in shock. She had expected him to retreat or walk off, not fire back with laser precision. How dare you, she started. But Ford cut her off. I know enough, he said, eyes locked on her. Enough to know your entire career is built on tearing people apart. You sit behind this desk like it's a throne, thinking you're untouchable, hiding behind a panel of women, so you can say whatever cruel thing you want with no consequences. The other hosts were practically hiding in their seats now, eyes darting between Joy and Harrison, terrified of what might come next. Whoopi Goldberg tried to lighten the mood with a joke, something about aliens and politics. But her voice trailed off when both Ford and Behar turned to glare at her. She sank back into her seat. You think you can psychoanalyze me now? Joy asked, her voice shaking with rage. Or was it something else? You don't know anything about my life, you arrogant has-been. Ford actually laughed, cold, humorless. A has-been, he said. Joy, I made more money last year than you'll see in a lifetime. My movies are still in theaters. People around the world still pay to see my work. Meanwhile, you're here, chattering about celebrities to fill airtime between ads for wrinkle cream. Gasps echoed from the audience. Some people covered their mouths. This wasn't a disagreement anymore. It was a verbal execution, and both participants seemed hell-bent on finishing it. You think money is everything, don't you? Joy snapped. You think landing a few roles makes you invincible? Money. Ford's voice finally rose. You think I was handed anything? I worked construction. I auditioned for roles I didn't get. I scraped and clawed my way through this industry. You got a seat at this table because you're willing to be cruel on command. So don't lecture me about luck. The control booth was in chaos. Directors waved, stage managers signaled, someone debated whether to kill the feed. But the scene unfolding was impossible to walk away from. At least I don't phone in my work, Joy said, her voice dripping with venom. At least I try to bring something real to the table. You just show up, mumble through lines, and cash the check. Ford stepped closer. His face flushed, his fingers twitching at his sides. You want to talk about phoning it in? Look around, Joy. Look at this set. This scripted, hollow spectacle where you sit and tear down people who do the hard work. You call that trying? This is a pathetic excuse for television. And you are the reason why. Joy stood too, squaring off across the panel like it was high noon in a western. The energy in the room was electric, tense enough to snap. Get out, Joy said through clenched teeth. Her voice had dropped, but it was laced with fury. Get out of my studio. Right now. Ford stared at her, his face calm but unreadable. Your studio? He said with a dry, humorless laugh. This isn't your studio, Joy. It's a set. You don't own anything here. Except maybe that chair you've been warming for the last 20 years, while contributing nothing to society except venom. Cameras kept rolling, catching every word, every glance. Somewhere in the control room, someone whispered, "This is going viral." The audience was glued to the moment, watching two public figures completely unravel in real time. You know what your problem is? Joy said, voice rising. You can't handle someone finally telling you the truth about your career. You're not the action hero anymore. You're just another aging actor who refuses to admit the spotlight's moved on. The words hit Ford like a slap. His face paled for a second, like she'd struck something raw and real. But then his expression shifted. That flash of pain turned into something colder. Calculated. His gaze sharpened. The silence that followed Joy's comment felt eternal. The audience barely dared to breathe. Everyone in the studio could feel it. Something was coming. When Harrison finally spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. But it carried the weight of 5 decades in the industry. You want to know what no one cares about anymore, Joy, he said. People who make their living trying to destroy others. People who've never built anything worth remembering. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares about your opinion of me, or anyone else. Joy opened her mouth, ready to strike again, but Ford held up a hand. I'm not finished. His voice was firmer now. Steadier. You asked me when I last challenged myself as an actor, he said. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you challenged yourself to be a decent human being? When was the last time you used this platform to lift someone up instead of dragging them down? When did you stop looking in the mirror and start hiding behind cruelty? The other hosts were frozen, stunned. The control room had stopped issuing instructions. They were just watching now. Joy's hands were shaking. Whether from anger or something deeper, no one could tell. You sanctimonious hypocrite, she hissed. You think you're better than everyone? That because you starred in a few movies, you've got the moral high ground. Ford raised his eyebrows. I never claimed to be a moral authority, he said. I'm just an actor who tries to do his job with integrity. And apparently, that's too much to ask for in your world. Respect has to be earned, Joy shot back. And you haven't earned anything but a reputation for being difficult on every set you've worked on. Ford let out a different kind of laugh this time. Warmer, like something had just clicked. Difficult, he said. Yeah, I've been called that. I'm difficult when directors want lazy performances. I'm demanding when producers try to cut corners. I fight for the work because I care about the final product. Because I respect the audience. He looked directly into the camera for the first time. And I'm difficult when people like you try to destroy everything others have worked for. So yeah, if standing up for the truth makes me difficult, I'll wear that label proudly. Joy was trembling now, rage radiating from her. You want to lecture me about decency? She snapped. You're the one who just spent 10 minutes insulting me on national television. I'm responding to your attack, Ford said calmly. There's a difference. You started this by trying to humiliate me. I'm finishing it by telling the truth. He stepped forward, voice lowering again, every word deliberate. You hide behind tough questions and honesty, but that's not what this is. This is cruelty. This is performance disguised as journalism. And the saddest part is, you probably don't even realize how much damage you've done to yourself in the process. For the first time, Joy faltered. A flicker of something passed over her face. Shame? Pain? It was hard to say. But the moment didn't last. Joy's face hardened again, mask slipping back into place. Her tone turned vicious. How dare you try to psychoanalyze me, she spat. You don't know anything about my life, about what I've been through. You think you can just walk in here, talk down to me, and act like some kind of saint. Ford's expression didn't change. One conversation doesn't define a person, she added louder now. You don't know who I am. You think you do, but you don't. This isn't about one conversation, Ford replied, voice steady. This is about what you do every single day. You attack. You mock. You press until people break. And then when someone finally fights back, suddenly you're the victim. The control room was chaos. Some producers wanted to cut the feed. Others were whispering about legal risks. But no one could look away. What was unfolding wasn't just shocking. It was captivating. Ford took a step closer to the desk, eyes still locked on Joy. You want to know what I think, he said, voice rising with intensity. I think you're jealous. I think you've spent your whole career tearing people down because it's easier than building something of your own. And now you resent everyone who's done what you never could. Joy's mouth dropped open, then closed again. She was searching for words, but they didn't come. That's what this is about, Ford continued. It's not about me. It's about you. You're angry that people remember my work with affection, because no one remembers yours. Joy's face flushed crimson. Her voice came out low, nearly trembling. Jealous of what? Of your crumbling career? Your string of flops? Your desperate need to stay relevant? No, Ford said, almost gently now. You're jealous that I created something people care about. That when people think of me, they think of stories, characters, worlds. You want to know what they think when they hear your name? They think of shouting, of mockery, of bitterness. A painful silence followed. Even Joy's co-hosts were stunned. For once, she had no comeback. Ford nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He glanced around the room, then returned his focus to Joy. You know, I came here today to talk about a film I'm proud of. Something I hope gives people a little joy. No pun intended. A break from their problems. A moment to breathe. He swept his arm at the studio around him, voice full of quiet disdain. But you take that joy and grind it down into dust. You turn magic into cynicism. You take people's hard work and reduce it to punchlines. And why? For ratings? For applause from the crowd? For what? Joy's lips moved, but no sound came. The weight of Ford's words seemed to have landed somewhere deep. And even she couldn't hide the crack in her armor. Finally, she found her voice again. But it was barely more than a whisper. You don't get to talk to me like this. Ford didn't blink. I'm not talking to you, Joy, he said. I'm talking to what you've become. The room was dead silent. Then Joy exploded. You think you're so much better than everyone else, she shouted. That you're above this show, above this audience, above all of us. Ford turned toward the edge of the stage. He took a step as if to leave, then paused, turning back to her one last time. You're right, he said, voice calm again. You don't need me. But maybe, just maybe, you should take a long, hard look at what you've become. Because if this is who you are now, I feel sorry for you. And with that, Harrison Ford walked off the set. The studio was frozen. Ford's footsteps echoed as he disappeared off stage, leaving behind a panel of stunned hosts, a shell-shocked crew, and a visibly shaken Joy Behar still standing in place. Her arm extended, finger pointing toward empty air. Cameras kept rolling, unsure of what to do. The control room fell into stunned silence. Everyone understood. They had just captured something that would be played, replayed, and dissected for years to come. The audience sat in disbelief. Some whispered. Others simply stared at Joy, who was still standing as if frozen in time. Whoopi tried to say something. Anything. But the words caught in her throat. The other hosts finally stirred, scrambling to salvage the moment. But the damage was already done. The atmosphere was scorched. This wasn't just an awkward interview. It was a public meltdown. A historic collision between one of Hollywood's most respected icons and one of daytime television's most polarizing figures, broadcast unfiltered to millions. Joy's face remained rigid. Beneath the makeup, the rage was still there. But something else had taken hold too. Something harder to define. Humiliation. Shock. Maybe even regret. She looked around, as if trying to find her bearings, but the set that once felt like her kingdom now seemed alien, cold and hostile. Someone from the crew finally moved toward her with a cue card, silently urging her to transition the show. She didn't take it. Instead, she lowered her hand slowly, turned toward the cameras, and tried to gather herself. But the audience could see it. This wasn't over. Ford's words lingered in the air, still echoing even after he was gone. You need to take a long, hard look at what you've become. The other hosts exchanged nervous glances. No one wanted to say what they were all thinking, that this moment had changed things. Not just for the show, but for Joy. Backstage, Ford's publicist caught up with him, breathless, pale. You okay? She asked. Ford didn't answer immediately. He kept walking, eyes forward. Then finally, with a deep breath, he said, I'm fine. I said what I needed to say. And he meant it. Whatever the fallout would be, whatever headlines would follow, he wasn't concerned. Because for the first time in a long time, Harrison Ford hadn't been acting. He'd been telling the truth. And in a world of scripts and spin, that was more powerful than anything he could have said on screen. So what do you think of this explosive, no-holds-barred exchange between Harrison Ford and Joy Behar? Have you ever seen anything this raw, this intense, play out on live television? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more unbelievable moments, celebrity confrontations, and behind-the-scenes drama you won't see anywhere else. Because here, we don't sugarcoat anything. We show you what really happens when the cameras are rolling and the gloves come off. What did you think of Harrison Ford's response? Was he out of line, or just brutally honest? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more uncensored moments from Hollywood's biggest stars.